doesn't look like Lego. He didn't realize until like we got an aerial picture or something. Like he just happened to be up here, and he was like, "Oh my god!"
Mayor, we are
So then he
live.
started. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Boring.
Are you sure?
I think we're gonna be okay. Are you ready, guys? Andy, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. I open this special study session at 6:01, September 30th, 2024. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone attending this afternoon's meeting in person that the meeting is being recorded and that this room is equipped with microphones throughout that will pick up any talking. So please refrain from having sidebar discussions that you do not wish for the microphones to record. All right, we have one item on the agenda, 2025-2026 budget. And we will call Jason Wilson to microphone.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll just wait just a moment for the presentation to come up. Okay, so we're going to continue down our budget review process. I don't have a clicker. Hold on just a second. Mr. Steffens is bringing it up here. As you recall, we are in the process, or we're in the stage where council is reviewing the executive's proposed budget. And this is your opportunity to ask a lot of questions about what's in the budget, what's not in the budget, and dive into the details. So tonight, we're going to focus on three main areas. We're going to focus on information technology, parks, and facilities. And you can see parks and facilities also have a associated capital fund with them. So as a reminder, what we're going to cover tonight is a departmental overview, what the main functions of those departments are, any mandates that are affecting those budgets, things that are on the horizon that we want to just keep on the radar that may impact the budget either during this biennium or future bienniums, how it fulfills your council goals, and actually how it fulfills your council priorities, as well as fulfilling other planning documents or goals that this council has approved. We'll also go into the financial overview for each fund, focusing on significant ongoing items as well as one-time needs. And then if applicable, we'll talk about difficult choices that the executive department made, some other things for you to consider in the future, staffing changes, as well as items. I just lost my monitor.
Sorry, I'm trying to fix it.
It's really, so council's really pixelated up behind you, so apologize. We're gonna be going back and forth here to make sure we get it. As a reminder, we're not gonna cover every item that's in the budget. The sheets in front of you, as well as this presentation, really kind of lumps everything together into 6 major categories: salaries, benefits, supplies, services and charges, interfund transfers, and then the authorized FTEs that are billed to that. As always, full line item details are available upon request, and we're happy to answer any questions that council may have. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Steffens, who's going to start with IT.
Good evening. I will do my best to work through the IT fund with a very pixelated screen, which is odd. Maybe I'll look off to the side here. So the IT is an internal service fund. So what that means is the users of IT pay into the fund. Typically, that's done through a quarterly assessment. And when Cassandra figures out this budget, if a piece of technology is directly related or applicable to a particular department, they would pay for that. If it's an overall system, piece of software, or personnel costs, that's kind of spread out through everyone. So we'll go through this. So main functions, they maintain technology infrastructure and provide reliable service to critical functions. They lead cybersecurity efforts through the city, making sure everyone's email is protected, all of our systems are protected. Cybersecurity is a big deal. And it's something we've really been focusing on here over the last biennium, probably the last 2 bienniums. helps staff stay up to date with new systems and changes to maximize city resources, and provide public safe and reliable access to customer-facing technology information. So that would be things on our website, as well as getting access to be able to pay utility bills and stuff like that. Some of the mandates that IT deals with, these are things we've already gone over before. So once again, we talked about public meetings. We must offer a virtual component to public meetings. So IT is in charge of that, the software and the monitors and the cameras. And we talked earlier about ADA laws that are changing the way that we have information posted on our website. It's a federal mandate, and you'll see that there will be a budget request here related to that as well. So budget impacts. In IT, we talked about the need for cybersecurity and risks of an attack interrupting critical services are increasing exponentially. Sumner does a really good job on trying to stay on top of this as much as we can, but it's one of those things where you're never going to do a good enough job. There's always more that you can do. As far as small cities, we're ahead of a lot, but we have the same risks of a large city. Normal day-to-day operations across the city require lots of technology. We strive to find efficiencies, and what might be an efficiency for an employee or someone in the field to rely on software, rely on a tablet, rely on a phone to get their job done is great for them, but it creates more work for the IT folks. And then we've really been spending more and more time in software evaluation, implementation, and support. All of our software programs are managed and paid for out of the IT department. So they're really in tune with all of those things. Often they have to be the experts for software that they don't use on a regular basis. And if not, then they're the go-between between the employee and the software support. So this hits some council priorities: effective transportation, public safety, and excellent government. So some program overview. In this biennium, we have $213,000 allocated for computer replacements. That represents about 65% of our computers are going to be replaced during the biennium. A typical computer has a 4-year lifespan. After that, it's kind of obsolete and it's also out of warranty. So we're on a 4-year replacement cycle. As you can see, software is a big cost, almost 426,000. Some of the bigger ones in there, obviously Microsoft 365 licenses. It wasn't that long ago, you just approved the annual contract for that. Wonderware, this is SCADA software, so that's for our water systems, and then WIMS is our treatment plant software. We have allocated $180,000 to cybersecurity, so that's a variety of different softwares and things that we use to stay on top of that, including training for all employees and the mayor. She loves.
Oh, I love it. Can't get enough.
One category is software as a service. So now software, you're not like it used to be. You would go and you'd buy the disk and you'd install the software on your computer. Now it's software as a service. So you're signing up, you're subscribing, you're paying reoccurring monthly or yearly fees. One of the biggest ones that we have in there is our Tyler Technology. So this is our Munis product at just over $400,000. We'll be moving this from on-premises to putting our software up in the cloud. It comes with increased costs, and it's not something that we really want to do, but we don't really have a lot of choice. They've updated the software and they're making it so you kind of have to move to cloud computing.
So on the software that's, 425,000, you have about 200,000 listed, but what's the other, or 250,000 or 225,000, what would that be for?
That's a lot of other smaller software, anywhere from the $1,000 to $10,000 range. So we're just hitting the big ticket items in each one of these. Same with software as a service, 943,000. We're only listing about half of the software as a service.
We have an Arbor Pro software that helps us track street trees. I mean, pretty much, I would say 90%. Every single department has software that they use to do their daily functions, and it's all incorporated in the IT budget.
Yeah, and you'll see on a future slide, we have over 340 software programs that the city is currently using.
I mean, there are some that are rather large, like Munis, that are used by multiple departments, but a lot of little small individual softwares that we need. And as much as we can, we try to get things that all integrate together, but that's not always the reality. Sometimes it's a smaller software is what's necessary to do things the best way.
Thank you.
Moving, you were saying we're moving to the cloud, is that because of storage capacity?
It's really the vendor has kind of forced us to move to the cloud. They said that they're moving all of their software to the cloud, and if we want to keep getting the latest updates, we have to go to the cloud. And they said, you could stay if you want the way it is, but you won't get things like tax forms. Well, it's important that we have up-to-date tax forms when we're doing W-2s and filing taxes, so we don't really have a choice. It's a great business model by them, but we're stuck. So I'll quickly talk through some one-time expenditures. Up here we have $200,000, and that's for watershed security. As mentioned, we have a large watershed. We have springs that are not actively monitored, so this includes alarms and cameras in the watershed. Earlier I talked about the ADA compliance, so that's making our website ADA compliant. We have $50,000 kind of plugged in as a professional service to hopefully hire a company to work on that for us. And $35,000 to install cameras at the animal shelter. And I think that was presented before as well.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, so on the budget I'm looking at here, the supplies is the major item on the expenses, and then the services and charges, and then I'm trying to compare that with what we're looking at. Computer replacements is probably a supply, but how does the cybersecurity, like there's a lot of those numbers that are, I would expect the software as a service to be
That's in
services.
It's in supply.
It's a supply, okay, so they're not directly, okay.
Yeah, we have how many major categories of supplies? Cassandra's gonna look here.
So when we're looking at supplies, that's including everything from network, infrastructure, computers, printers, servers, software, monitors, cybersecurity, software as a service, and CCTV. So all of that rolls up into that supplies category.
Supplies is really pretty much the catch-all category for a lot of what IT does.
And then services includes not only some professional services, but communications as well. So that's going to be any of our broadband, fiber, telecommunications, cell phones, any of that is going to be included in services.
So as Jason mentioned, just some kind of statistics here on IT and what they do, which is pretty amazing. We have 3 employees in this department. They manage 167 active users, which is about 150 workstations, 112 mobile devices, so cell phones and tablets, 120 network items, 340 plus different software applications that we're using as a city. As mentioned, we have 82 CCTV cameras that are currently installed, with more planned coming in the next biennium. They've responded to almost 2,800 service tickets, 10,000 security patches installed. So quite a lot of networking infrastructure, IT infrastructure that they deal with. For a staff of 3 people. We had some difficult choices. So IT asked for an intern. This would be kind of similar to the public works intern, so working with the SEED internship program. This was approved. This intern would probably help work on computer rollouts in the summer, doing some basic IT help desk stuff. We've also asked for $125,000 to update City Hall access controls. So that's kind of updating all of our locks and security at City Hall and get something that's going to be compatible with our CCTV system. We've asked for roughly $75,000 in parks cameras. So we have already purchased cameras for the sports complex. This $75,000 would put cameras in Loyalty Park, Siebenthaler, Rainier View, and that's it, just the 3. Yeah, just the 3, sorry. $75,000 would put cameras in those 3 parks. And then also we've asked for $24,000, and this is for a camera in the cemetery mausoleum. The mausoleum's kind of experienced some vandalism, and it's a costly repair. So we'd be adding a camera in that as well. And these access controls, the parks cameras and cemetery cameras were kind of direct department asks, but since IT purchases them, that's why you're seeing them now in the IT budgets. Of those, as you can see, the intern was the only one that got executive funding. The rest are kind of on your menu for later. With that, I'm happy to answer any other IT questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Greg.
Question on looking on the back page of the numbers and the budget notes, the city's getting a grant in 2025 from Homeland Security. Do we know how much that is and what is it factored into this budget? Or am I reading it wrong? The budget notes at the bottom here.
Yeah, she's pulling it up. That's a cybersecurity grant.
I was just curious if there was a dollar amount on it and that's on back end somewhere.
Brian's got the answer.
Go ahead, Brad.
We have approximately, the grant we got is for approximately $25,000.
Okay.
And we have been awarded the funds through the state, and it's sitting at FEMA for final kind of review and approval of our program.
And you can use it for whatever as long as it's for cyber.
We have some designated cybersecurity programs that we've planned to spend it on.
Thank you.
And this will be our second year that we've received this funding. And that's kind of relatively new that the federal government has offered cybersecurity money.
Any other questions? All right, go ahead.
Okay, so passing to me, I'm going to talk about parks operations and parks capital. So parks operations is held within the general fund. Parks operations provide safe, inviting, accessible park facilities through maintenance, repair, and care. And we're always looking for ways to expand our open space, improve on our amenities, provide additional capacity, and then other resources really to serve our changing needs and populations. As our population evolves and grows, really so do the demands on our park infrastructure. And then in addition, Parks is tasked with caring for our urban forest. So that's our street trees and our public trees. Mandates in parks operations include our Growth Management Act, requires a parks and open space plan for quality of life. ADA, of course, is very important when we're looking at accessibility for our parks, amenities and facilities. And then one that I was also going to throw up here, but I'll mention our Tree City USA isn't necessarily a formal mandate, but having that designation does require a certain level of expenditure on an annual basis. One of the challenges we are faced, and I think a lot of cities share this, is an ever increasing expenditure that's not really within our control, and that is damage to our parks and facilities. Damage keeps increasing. It poses safety risks, escalates our cost, our staff impact, our impact to the community, and really we don't have any ability to control that. If we have vandalism, if we have damage, especially if there's a safety component, we have an obligation to address it and address it quickly. This includes everything from graffiti, damage at our skate park, holes dug in the grass by people doing various detectoring, whether it's metal detectoring or geocaching, stripping tree bark, chopping down trees, setting restrooms on fire. There is a whole litany of experiences that we run across that require really an immediate response, whether or not there have been funds appropriated for that. Despite that, the value of our parks remains very high. People want parks facilities, they want amenities, and they want clean and safe access. But the tolerance for that construction and the work to create that continues to really lower. We've had to hire overnight security to resurface our playground out at Loyalty Park without someone going over the fence to try and play on fresh surface, which ruins it. We've had a variety of other just instances where we are working on getting those amenities constructed. This all creates a budget impact. Any further maintenance cuts, any further maintenance impacts are likely to increase our cost. We just don't see being able to get away from that. Deferring any kind of maintenance in favor of doing emergency repairs or maintenance just kind of builds up the cost. An example listed here, leaving fall leaves in the parks too long due to staff being reallocated really led to having us reseed sections of loyalty in the spring, which of course increases the impact on staff and frankly decreases the accessibility to the public, which is the last thing we want to see happen. Caring for our urban forest continues to be a challenge. Levels of service expectations for our parks and grounds continue to increase. And then damage, whether it's natural through a windstorm or flooding or man-made through vandalism, require addressing for public safety and for insurance coverage. Fulfilling goals, parks, trail, and open space, of course, Main Street vision, strategic tourism. We do this in a lot of ways, whether it's watering our summer hanging baskets, maintaining our street trees, hanging banners, and then of course staying current with playground safety rules. I know when I first had kids, I didn't give a whole lot of thought towards playgrounds, and then all of a sudden I was at them, and then when you start talking to Mr. Berry back there and you start realizing some of the hoops that we have to jump through to ensure that we have playground certified employees and that we're making sure that our playgrounds have all the safety that we need. Council priorities are parks and open space meets community character, maintains welcoming small town charm, public safety, and of course excellent government. Program overview in operations. We have a recurrent seasonal watering position. This position is responsible for watering our hanging baskets along with a variety of other plantings in the right of way. We also on a biennial basis have public utility services around $130,000. So that's all of our irrigation, electricity, and garbage disposal associated with our parks. In this biennium, we have added an extra seasonal position. This will assist in watering some new street trees and making sure that for the trees that we're putting in and for the other amenities that we're putting in, that we're giving them a good solid start. And then a parks plan and grant consultant for $50,000 to assist really in developing parks plans to the point that's necessary to apply for grants and then writing those grants. We're very successful overall as a city in grant writing and grant procurement, but parks grants are among some of the most competitive and really difficult to apply for that we see. And then we also have in our capital a resistograph. This is a piece of equipment for our urban forest. Looks like a little drill, but it's measuring the density and the strength of the interior wood of a tree. So, there is our second seasonal to water. Mr. Alphys?
Quick question. So on just looking at the public utility services, 130,000, is that an interfund expense? Is that where I'm seeing that correctly?
On the
ongoing expenses you had for 130,000.
Yes.
I'm just curious if that is in the interfund.
it's in services and charges.
It is in services and charges.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? You guys good? Go ahead.
This is an example of some of the increasing demands that we see on our parks. You know, we've substantially completed construction of the Rainier View Covered Court. If you haven't been out there, especially at night, it is gorgeous. But we have not even really opened it for the public yet, and we are already getting requests for additional amenities and services out at that facility. So, and the difficult choices. One of the items that Parks has asked for in our operations section is an autonomous mower, a little over $60,000. I know that there was a demo of this, and this was put by executive on the list for council consideration as you consider the various requests for resources as we wrap up our budget presentations. I had to throw a picture in there too.
Go ahead, Andy.
Just curious, when we did the demo, I asked about if we could look at an option for leasing it. Is that something that we have gotten information back from? I think that they mentioned they had the option, they just hadn't. I think that would be my preference.
For what, Andy?
To lease the mower?
We did look into that. Derek will respond to that.
That'd be great.
So yes, we could lease. It's really up to the terms we would want.
personally, I think that because of the new technology becomes obsolete so quickly, leasing would probably be my preference, but it'd be nice to see the terms. So the price difference would be important too.
We can certainly follow up with that. I know one of the requests was to develop an ROI, a return on investment, on that piece of equipment. So staff put this together, looking at an 8 to 10 year useful life. We would be looking at an ROI of just under 4 years.
Anybody else? Okay.
Are there any questions on the parks operations before I move into parks capital?
Can I just go backwards for a minute? So I think I had said something about an ROI. So just looking at that, the staff savings, so is this fully burdened?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So 4 years payback. What's the lifespan of one of these mowers?
8 to 10.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I think you're good.
So aside from operations that's housed in the general fund, we also have Fund 310. So Fund 310 is our Parks and Trails Capital Fund. And this is where we're going to have all of our capitalized parks projects. So this fund tracks all of our dollars available for capital projects. That could be from a variety of sources. That could be our own park impact fees, as well as grants or other partnerships obtained for specific projects. We recognize that some parks are loved and used daily. Other parks go a little bit underused. So the projects outlined in the plan add amenities to increase use and fulfill public needs and expectations, while really trying to provide that equity across all of our park facilities. And then this fund really does provide the transparency to help the public and council see the available funding for parks capital from a variety of funding sources. We have the same mandates here that we have in parks operations, parks and open space plan for quality of life, and making sure that we meet ADA requirements for accessibility. Budget impacts, limited funding opportunities. I know I mentioned before, but the competition for parks grants specifically, there's fewer granting agencies, and there is a much higher level of competition when we are looking at that. There's also timing issues. These grants are often state grants. We're dealing with a state budget request, and there's periods of 1 to 2 to 3 and even more years between the time a funding opportunity opens and you're actually eligible to obligate those funds. We try and make sure that all of our funding approaches are evaluated to best meet the needs and wants of our community. And then looking at our long-term capital needs for existing infrastructure. One of the things this budget does not address is our skate park and our Bill Heath Sports Complex. And that's something that we want to be sure that we're keeping on the radar. And then again, competitive and limited grant availability for parks capital.
Anybody? Question?
I just have, why is that the skate park in Bill Heath is not included in the parks?
It's available resources and available grant opportunities. Those don't rate super highly for grants. We've been trying.
I'm curious.
We've had multiple grant applications out and just haven't scored.
Go ahead, Andy.
I just wanted to just make note, I'm just looking at the 2023-24 adopted budget versus revised, and just noting that the revenues were anticipated at 4.5 and the actual revenues were 11 million. So I was like, that was mostly the fire revenue trail, and then the which is phenomenal. I just want to say that's it sounds like that's just grant funding. Just wanted to clarify on the cash balance and the year balance, there's a deficit, and it looks like that is likely the grant for the fire revenue trail, the remaining grant. Is that correct? That's just a timing issue?
Yes. And so what you'll see in your preliminary budget, that 2024 column is often an estimate. As we refine into the final budget document, those estimates will be updated. So.
All right, thank you. That's great.
Anybody else? No? Okay, go ahead.
So fulfilling goals, of course, parks, trails, and open space, as well as our Main Street vision. And really funding our projects as outlined and as our resources available to fulfill public needs. Council priorities, community character and excellence in government. And then program overview. We have a fair amount of things that are programmed into Fund 310 for this upcoming biennium, including Siebenthaler Park shade structures, picnic tables, that's $25,500, that's funded in by park impact fees, as well as the same for over at Rainier View Park, again by park impact fees. Adding in $6,000 for downtown bike racks and $5,000 for downtown tables, those are both funded by occupancy tax. Relocating the Heritage Park gazebo to Loyalty Park, $35,000, funded by park impact fees. And then Heritage Park temporary amenities, $60,000, and that's the remaining allocation that council has given its okay to from the council strategic reserve funds. Keeping a note, Pierce County LTAC has recommended $2.9 million in funding for 2025 for Heritage Park Phase 2 and Hops Alley. Those are not currently reflected in the budget. We're waiting for Pierce County to approve their budget. As soon as they do, and we've got a reasonable expectation of those funds, we'll make that change in the 2025 budget.
Any questions on that? You guys all right?
So I wanted to add this picture because it shows very clearly why we need some shade structures and picnic tables for Siebenthaler. And then we'll add the same thing at Rainier, bike racks at City Hall, in downtown area will be well used. And then table and chairs funded by our lodging tax. I recognize those faces. Moving the gazebo. And then this is where the temporary amenities at Heritage Park will be. Some of the difficult choices that were made.
1 second.
No, go ahead.
I just had a quick question about moving the gazebo. We talked about maybe just getting a new one, but it is going to be an actual move, a relocation?
Right now, it'll be a relocation. We have been evaluating what the cost of a new one is versus, there are always challenges when you take something that's 30 years old, demo it, clean it up and move it. So we are currently evaluating. Right now, it does seem to be more cost effective to still move this one.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else before we go on? Okay.
So just like we see in throughout the city budget, there are a lot of really valuable asks for a limited amount of resources. In the Parks Capital, staff asked for $45,000 for restriping at the sports complex. And the executive brought that down to zero, and that'll be on the listing provided at the end of the budget process for council consideration and review. River Grove Park Master Plan, so actually Canal Park, asked $100,000, executive approved $25,000, and that really is to get a start on that master plan. One of the reasons these master plans are so important is because often they're asked for during a grant process. Granting agencies want to see that the city or the applicant has some skin in the game and that there's already a preliminary plan for improvements. This, of course, doesn't fund a full master plan that has all of your engagement, all of your input, but it gets you to the point where you're able to go after funding. And then the same thing for a Parks Capital Grant Consultant. I was asked for $25,000, and we did see that reflected in the budget. Bill Heath Sports Complex Turf Fields, this would have been a $500,000 grant match coming out of Parks Impact fees. That was reduced down to zero pending actually getting grant funding for that project. And then items that weren't asked for during this biennium, but we know they're on the radar for future biennia, is Bennett Property Park improvements, Heritage Park Phase 3 through 5, and the skate park.
Can I quickly ask for clarification real quick?
Yeah.
So on the pending funding, if I'm understanding that correctly, so if we receive a grant, then that'll probably come back to us for a decision at some point in the future?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Typically, we would do that through kind of two things. There's a grant acceptance process, but then there's a budget amendment, and the budget amendment recognizes the revenue and then appropriates the expenditure at that point. So tennis pickleball restriping at Heath Sports Complex will still be a question mark. Parks plan for Quinnell is partially funded and in development has been deferred. Turf field at Heath Sports Complex, again, that is pending grants. Future phases at Heritage Park, we know is on the radar. And then addressing the skate park, which will be a conversation for the future.
One more question.
Yeah.
Is there a master plan already for Creekside Park?
I don't believe so. I'd defer to Mr. Baird for that.
There's a master plan for Creekside, but it's very early. So the
Preliminary.
master plan's there, but it's used then to leverage for grants, which we've been actively applying for.
Okay, so that one's good. I was just gonna say, it'd be nice to have a master plan on both those new parks that aren't, so we do have them.
Yeah, we have a master plan for Creekside as well as Siebenthaler.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm gonna round out the night with some facilities. So, once again, we have an operation fund and we have a capital fund. So as with any building, all of our city facilities need constant repair and care to make sure they live the longest life that they can live and serve us as well as possible. A little bit of history, the building you're sitting in today, I think everybody knows this used to be a fire department. So we ran Sumner Fire out of here. When the fire station was built over on Harrison, there was a remodel done of this half of the building. So this is a 1930s era building, and it was went through a remodel in the early 90s, which created this council chambers as well as the offices upstairs. They took the sleeping quarters. I think Councilmember Baranki could probably tell the story better than me. Redid all that. In the late 90s, 99, the rest of City Hall was constructed with a 20-year lifespan. Well, we know it's 2024. Right now, we are in a situation where we have absolutely no room left and upstairs at City Hall or in the police department. We are in the position of where a number of our staff are sharing workstations or desks. That's only possible because of the hybrid work environment that we operate in. So we have, people, one employee using a desk for 2 days of the week, another employee using it the other 2 days of the week. And sometimes they end up being here at the same time and then they're taking somebody else's desk. In the police department, we're at the point where we have no locker room space left. Our patrol room is also at capacity. So there is a definite need, and we've talked about this many times before, that this building, we need a longer term plan for it. And it is addressed in our capital facilities plan that you'll be reviewing as part of our comp plan update. Yes.
How many times has upstairs been reconfigured? Because each time I come in, it's like,
All the time.
I didn't know that was an office, and so it just.
Yeah, we've added offices and closets and storage rooms. We've taken out workroom. I mean, think about when this building was built, we were still very paper dependent, and we are definitely not today. So we've taken those mail rooms and copy rooms and, shrunk them from 2 large ones. Now we have it in a cubicle. That's a significant thing. But how many times has it been remodeled? I'd say in the last 10 years, we've done at least a dozen different reconfigurations upstairs of adding offices or trying to maximize space.
So it's not like you're just going out and saying, "Oh, we want a bigger space." You need it.
Yeah, we definitely do. And this building is very deceptive. I mean, from the outside, it looks really tall, looks really big, but it's just a square and it's not as tall. It looks 3 stories, it's only 2 stories. So and it's not really laid out the most efficiently. If you walk through City Hall, which I know all of you have at different times, the lobbies are kind of odd size, the conference rooms are kind of weird. It wasn't designed probably how a current office building would be designed to maximize space.
Anybody else?
Obviously, as the city grows, and our services that we offer grow, that does require more staff. That's not only office space, but also meeting space, restrooms, and parking needs. I think that's another thing it's good to touch on. Upstairs, we have 3 single stall restrooms. And I know the mayor and I can attest, they're always busy when you need it. So it's like you're finding restrooms down here or in the other public lobby areas to use. Just once again, not designed for the number of employees. Parking lots as well. You know, on certain days of the week, that parking lot, there is not enough parking for the city employees that are working here. So they end up, you know, typically parking in 3-hour spots and then moving when appropriate, trying to be good neighbors and not parking in front of residences. You know, obviously the world's changing. We need to make sure that our spaces are secure and safe for our staff. That's why we're looking at improved access controls. We've upgraded our CCTV systems that were put in when the building was built. Making sure our access control systems are functioning and up to date with the latest technology. And then just obviously the way we do work is completely changed since these buildings were built. Much more heavily reliant on technology and digital needs. That's one of the challenges. I'll just jump to it now. A lot of our field locations, you might recall during the wastewater treatment facility Public Works presentation, they talked about the age of those buildings. They're circa the 1950s, and they also have another ones in the 70s. They're actually, you know, sitting too low for that site. They've been repurposed many times, but also our field crews, particularly the wastewater treatment facility, these buildings were built thinking that those employees would never use a computer. And that's just not how work is done nowadays. All their work is done on a computer, tablet, cell phone. Same with our shops. I was just in a meeting today where we're talking about some challenges that we have with some technology needs at our current existing shops. And we're having to add in, we're like reconfiguring that so we can get a couple more workstations in so our employees can get to the computers and use them. Because right now, they don't. They're just trying to do things on their phone, which are not possible to do on their phone. So trying to make things a little easier. So what are the mandates? And excuse me, a lot of these are pretty straightforward. You know, any work that's done on a city facility needs to pay prevailing wage, and it's subject to bid laws. We also have increasing mandates that require staffing increases. So a good example is pre-treatment program. We have to add staff for pre-treatment. But we don't have anywhere to put them. We will be hot desking that position in January when we hire it. Just there's not a dedicated workspace either at the treatment plant or here for them. So budget impacts, I already touched on this, that our field staff are using technology more than they were ever anticipated to. And then just these older facilities are starting to show their age and a lot of deferred maintenance over the years. So this fulfills our capital facilities plan as well as our Main Street vision plan. We want to keep things working safely and functional. And then also being able to plan for our large projects and respond promptly to everyday needs. So you got to have staff that has the ability to work in a safe facility to do that. Council priorities, it's natural resources and excellent government. So what are some of our ongoing expenses here? We have facility services, so like elevator maintenance, fire extinguisher, fire alarm testing, things of that nature. Generator servicing, we have approximately 30 generators in the city that have to be maintained and serviced on an annual basis. We have our public utilities for City Hall is one of our larger utility expenses. We also obviously have utility expenses for our other facilities, but things like the treatment plant are billed to the treatment plant fund, not to facilities. Some one-time expenses coming up are tools and equipment for a new facilities maintenance technician, as well as the vehicle. Which brings me to the next one. The facilities, or the community development department asked for a new facilities operator position. This would be funded through the indirect cost assessment program, 31% of which would be general fund. So you can see it's the wages and benefits plus the vehicle and equipment for the $346,000 biennial impact. For facilities operators, really to do all the preventative maintenance and deferred maintenance. This could be anything from painting to fixing windows, fixing plumbing issues. It's not uncommon that probably 5-6 times a year we have a pipe break in this building, usually associated with our HVAC system. So it's trying to chase those down and fix not only the pipe, but then the damage that that pipe caused. It's drywall and things of that nature. So
Any
very busy.
questions? Sorry, Jason.
That's okay. Move on to capital unless there's any operations questions.
Is that, I apologize, you probably said it, it just didn't land. So is this a new person in 25 and 26?
One new person starting in 25.
Okay. And then their wages go up? What's that 133, 347, and 26 then? That's where I'm confused.
So if you go across 2025, their wages are 127, a vehicle for 80, equipment for 6,
Right.
total is 213. The year 2 wages are 133. So you take the 213 and the 133 and you get
Got it.
346.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on to capital. This fund accounts for all capital costs associated with city facilities. So these are long-term investments that have a 5-year serviceable life. And this is for all of our facilities, so the senior center, operations center, et cetera. Capital improvements are funded through a variety of sources, including long-term financing, grants, transfers from other funds, including the general fund. And just really, we try to use this fund to capture all of that facilities capital work that we're doing. Some of this is mandated, including employee safety standards. So things that are, a good example of this is some work that we did out at the wastewater treatment facility by adding, catwalks so they could more safely pull pumps out of the headworks. We always have to be looking for those issues that could cause employee injuries and make sure that we're mitigating those. Other mandates, we touched on this when we talked about fleet, is the requirement to change to electric vehicles and the infrastructure that is needed to support those. Slowing down here. Okay, budget impacts. Really, how previous councils have handled a lot of this deferred maintenance is by delaying it, right? If we didn't have the funds available, we just delayed it, which sometimes can definitely add up. If it's some, you could fix it one day, you may not be able to fix it a couple of years later. You might have to replace it, and that's really just something that we're starting to see. And I'll show you some pictures here in the next few slides. It's rapidly becoming apparent we have to do some things to weatherproof this facility in particular. The changes in technology, we've talked about that already, as well as the increasing technical demands for cameras and locks and access control. And then we also anticipate the construction of the operations facility will occur during this budget cycle. So it fulfills our capital facilities plan as well as our emergency management plan. We need to make sure that we have structures that can sustain us through any sort of emergency and make sure that we can continue operations before, during, and after those emergencies.
Can I ask a really broad question that
Sure.
I'm following as I'm listening? Can you help me understand the difference? Like, so we have public works, which is the roads, is the general fund operations, and then we have facilities. Can you explain, like, how do we determine the difference between facilities? Is it just like certain buildings are the facilities? Like, how do I know the difference between facilities versus like other general fund maintenance kind of folks?
I can try.
Oh, sure.
So let's use a wastewater treatment facility. That's probably an easy example. Those facilities are paid for by the wastewater treatment facility. Then let's look at the shops. That's kind of what I think you might be leading towards, right? Our operations facility. We look at a variety of factors to determine how much of that facility is general fund versus utility, which would be water, sewer, storm basis, right? And parks then falls under general fund, streets falls under general fund. So sometimes we're looking at number of employees, sometimes we're looking at space, like square footage, and sometimes we're looking at vehicles, depending on what area. So for our operations facility, we looked at vehicles when we were looking at the parking areas to determine how much of that facility is to each one of those funds. That answer your question?
So so facilities is I thought we did one that was like a streets one specifically that had its own fund.
We do. So facilities is more, think of it as fixed real estate.
Okay.
And if you think about all of our funds, we've got like 26, 27 funds. Two really broad categories are we have enterprise, things that are paid for by some sort of a user charge, and then we have governmental, things that are just more governmental in nature. Things that are enterprise, paid for by user funds, so we're talking utilities, internal services funds, those facility costs are gonna stay within those funds because we want the cost to be absorbed by those user fees as well. Governmental that really aren't paid for by user fees is what you're gonna see captured in like that 300 capital series, facilities and streets, sidewalks, parks.
Okay, so the facilities is going to be like just specifically like most, like it'll include like city hall and building and senior center, like you
The
mentioned,
building.
that are not at all enterprise related,
Yes,
as well as a portion of some of the buildings that are shared.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And there's one single employee that manages all of those. So that's dealing with, my office is too cold, Cassandra's office is too hot complaints, dealing with elevator contracts. I mean, there's replacing leaky pipes, clogged toilets. One single employee deals with all of that for all of our buildings, and also including the senior center, which has its own set of issues.
And is there an overlap between some of those employees? Like if you get overwhelmed and somebody calls Public Works, can they send somebody over to do that and you can?
Yeah, he has the ability to call in some of the parks folks to help him out. Hey, I have a big project, I need an extra hand, I need someone to go get me some stuff. But then he's taking them away from what they would normally be doing.
Okay, yeah, thanks. It's kind of it's like not imaginary, but it's like it's a created
Yeah.
boundary. I was just trying to make sure I understood it. Thank you.
We also have our custodians in this. We have two custodians, full-time custodians that not only do all of our facilities, but also our downtown restrooms, the Portland Loos, things like that.
I would just add that if this was a corporation-owned company, there would be a litany of maintenance and facilities people taking care of it because of the cost, which is where I was gonna go if I can. So you said previous budgets dealt with fiscal cliff by delaying maintenance and updates to city facilities. Well, it's evident because we've walked through them all and I'm going, boy, they need some help. So I'm assuming that you have a list. I know we talk about the facilities that we need to go work on. Are any beyond repair, to your knowledge?
I would say that there's some buildings at the wastewater treatment facility that are well beyond their serviceable life.
Okay, and so we'll talk about the need. I think we talked about it last week. There was a brief mention by somebody of a couple of them. So to me, it's as much a safety concern as anything over there, but okay.
And just as a reminder, in the wastewater treatment budget, there is a line item to do a building analysis and do a study, figure out what we could possibly save and what's the future plan.
Right, okay, thanks.
We've been creative with some of our storage issues. I mean, we have temporary job shacks. We have a Connex box out in our parking lot here that we're using as storage. I mean, we found ways to make it work, but we're kind of getting where we're out of options.
Some of the like Jeff mentioned, we have 2 job shacks that we're have operations staff in right now, with the plan of when you build the new operations facility, those staff will then go to the new operations facility, not be working at a job shack, a construction trailer.
That really points out that the need was there way before the building is going to be done.
Anybody else?
All right, so some ongoing highlights here. This fund receives $200,000 from the general fund on a biennial basis to build up some reserves for some of these larger projects. This last biennium, we replaced the roof on this building with those funds. We always put in some money for HVAC repair and replacement here at City Hall. A lot of our HVAC units are older than 15 years. And we're not going out and replacing them ahead of time. We're typically waiting for them to fail and then replacing them on an as-needed basis. We have, a building of this size, it's over 20,000 square feet. We have a lot of HVAC equipment in this building. Some one-time expenses. We have electric vehicle chargers, like 2 of those here at City Hall. We've been selected for a CDBG grant. We're in the final, still needs to be confirmed, but we're hoping to finally secure that. That'll replace the partition as well as the floors, some of the floors at the senior center. The room divider partitions are manual right now. They're original to the building. They are incredibly difficult to shut and cause some our employees, but Stafford Suites employees some difficulty and even some minor injuries. So we need to get those replaced. The EV charger grant that we received for the Public Works Operations Facility is $400,000 worth of grant funding. The temperature control system replacement at the senior center, also original to the building when it was built in the 90s. It's at end of life and no longer supported. And then you might recall during the cemetery presentation, we talked about upgrading the windows and building paint at the office building, just kind of that main public area.
Go ahead, Andy.
Can you clarify the EV charger grant? So that's money coming in or money going out? It's a one-time expense or one-time?
Money coming in that will then be put out during the construction phase of the operations center.
The operations center.
So some difficult choices, City Hall windows and casings, and I'm gonna go into that in just a moment here. City Hall paint, and then Finance and Development Services asked for $50,000 to do some remodeling of that front lobby area and workstation. Try to squeeze another employee in there and also make it a little more effective lobby for the amount of space it takes and the amount of customers we have. It's actually too big. So they asked for 50. We think we can do some minor improvements for more than $10,000 range by using our own staff. Our building reserve fund at the end of the biennium is anticipated to be $650,000. Taking out the ongoing and one-time cost of $110,000, as well as if the council wanted to address the City Hall windows and paint at $600,000, we do not have enough in the building reserve fund to cover those expenses. So let's talk about the windows. So once again, as a reminder, this half of the building is much older than the other half. There's window problems throughout the entire building. The casings around the windows have never been painted, never been sealed. They're literally rotting off. You can put your finger through many of them. I mean, this is my office. You look out the window, but you can go to any window in upstairs City Hall, especially in the old portion, and see this. The other challenge is these are all double hung windows for some reason that are wood. None of them actually shut. Once you get them open, you can get them shut. If Jeff pushes up and I push down, we can usually get the latch done, but they still whistle quite big.
But if you're in Carmen's office, it explodes by itself.
This happened just last week.
On a windy day in Jason's office, his windows whistle. You can hear the wind cutting through them. It makes whistle sounds.
So you have an energy efficiency issue. And then I have a broken window at my office. This happened Carmen was sitting in her office and hers just broke last week.
By itself.
Definitely getting to be a little old. And then City Hall has its original paint on it from the 1990 edition. So it's definitely in need of resealing and paint, which we knew this 2 years ago. And we also knew the windows 2 years ago. And back then it was decided we got to get the roof done first. And we don't want to paint the building until we deal with the window issues because you have all that casing work that needs to be replaced.
So a great example, of the need for exterior paint is look at the front door when you go into the main lobby in the police department and just notice all the missing paint and the stickers and the stuff that's there. It's pretty bad.
Okay, so we obviously did not forget about the operations facility. That will be going out to bid here in a couple of weeks. And once those bids are open and we're getting ready to issue the debt, we will then include it into the actual budget. So it's not included in this budget at this time, but it is definitely on the radar and will be coming back early next year. Any questions about facilities?
Any questions? Any questions down here? No? You're good.
Okay, so coming up next, in 2 weeks actually, on the 14th, at the next regular study session, we'll be talking about the 2025 property tax levy. And then we'll be getting into other funds. We're actually not going to talk about building reserves since we just talked about that tonight. We'll be talking about capital reserves, ARPA funds, debt service, LID guarantee fund, and REIT. as well as occupancy tax, unemployment compensation, cemetery endowment, impact fees, and firefighter pensions. A handful of other miscellaneous funds to round us out. As a reminder, at the end of October, at our special study session on October 30th, is when we plan on bringing back all these items that are the staff and the mayor feel that you need to take a little bit more consideration on and maybe select some of those to be funded, whether it's general fund or in the case of tonight, when we talk about windows, possibly out of like building reserve funds. Any questions?
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Andy.
So just quick, the building reserve fund, so is that limited? We talked about just the $200,000 a year, I think you put in reserve. Is that really just all that's in that fund? It's just a, okay, I was gonna say, we talked about it, but we didn't see much, but that was all it is.
That's the only revenue source into that fund. And I'll have a budget sheet for you shortly on that one, but it's a transfer in from the general fund. It's funded by property taxes. And then whatever is programmed to be transferred out to the capital facilities fund for projects.
Got it, sounds simple, okay.
That's fairly new. I think it was 2017 is the
Yes.
first time we created that fund and started putting money into it. So it hasn't been around very long.
And when would be a good time to talk about, I think the cost of things has increased and we're behind. It seems like it'd be normal, I would expect to every couple years to evaluate that as part of the budget to say, hey, is that $200,000? In today's dollars, it seems like you'd probably double that because everything's about twice as expensive. I just was curious if that would be a discussion we could have, so, or when.
I think it's a good discussion for the 30th because, you know, your limited resources and what you can fund out of the remaining general funds that are unallocated.
All right, go ahead.
And mine is just sort of a comment, I guess. I saw two lines for grant consultants. I think one for 50,000, one for 25,000. I mean, I really get what it takes to apply for grants, and I think I asked about this before, but has there? I guess it is a question. Has there been any thought to like actually having a position as a grant writer?
There has not, and I just want to clarify, there's $50,000 total. I know it appeared twice in there, but it's just
Okay.
50,000, 25 for,
One of this is for Parks Plan.
and one of them's for a parks plan. It's actually like $25,000 for a grant writer. We've done exceptionally well on transportation grants. And I just say it's really our public works project managers that take their first crack at writing those, and then Carmen Palmer spends a good amount of time putting her spin on it. And so no, there hasn't been an exact thought to ask for that because we're doing okay right now.
Okay, thank you.
We're doing actually quite well.
Anybody else? Greg, you
good.
good? Barbara, you good?
It's also.
Anybody down there? Any more questions? All right? We're good?
Yeah, just one other thing that Derek wanted to mention, I neglected to do so. The parks grants are
LWCF, Land Water Conservation Fund.
so they're a state funded grant and they're very difficult to apply for and very competitive. That's why we want the outside consultant to help us with this.
Okay. Are we good?
Good.
All right, that was painless, I think. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:04.